there, I'm with you today to show you how to make this lovely card picture frame, constructed by hand and then covered by beautiful printed paper. So I'm just going to run through all the things that you need to make that. You need a sheet of grey card. This could be, you can buy this in the art shops, different weights and thicknesses. I just used the sort of the narrowest one, but you could use the like a cereal packet or something like that, or a box, just as easily. And you need some coloured papers. These ones are lovely. I get them from Paper Pack, kind of a Moroccan print on it, and I think that works really well, the geometric shapes. But I also think the sort of looser flowery patterns work really nicely as well. And you'll need 3 sheets of that in colours which complement each other. You will also need scissors, a craft knife, glue, especially some kind of glue stick like this, a marker, a pencil, and a ruler. So I've cut some of these pieces out already. You can see I've already cut a few of the shapes out, but I'm just going to show you the parts that you need. So you need a piece that's a size suitable for putting a small photograph in. I mean, you could go much larger, but this is a nice handy size for a 6x4 photograph. And I've marked out the centre part here, which I'm just going to show you how to cut out. And then you need a backing piece to go over the back of the area where the photograph's going to go. And you also need some little strips. You can see that I put strips down here to create a gap so you can slip your photograph in. And then also a stand. Okay. So when you're cutting the grey card, use a steel rule, much stronger than using a plastic rule, and go carefully into the corners by hand. It makes much more sense to do the corners by hand and then join up the 2 lines. It's difficult to see what you're doing sometimes when you're cutting against a ruler. Okay. The last cut you can do by hand because there's already a groove, and if you just allow the knife to cut through where you've already scored it, you'll find it's quite easy to go straight through the card. So as you can see, that bit, the piece I've cut to go over it, is maybe about a centimetre larger all round, to allow space for you to slip the photographs through. So now you've got your pieces. First of all, decide which piece you want for the front. I like this really bright one, so I'm going to use that. Turn it over and place the picture frame into the corner of the printed card, and then draw around it. Make sure you're using something that you can see fairly easily. Oops. That line didn't come out very well on that side. Okay. And then using a nice pair of scissors. I tend to use a largish pair for this kind of work. Cut a nice neat straight line Now you could do this with a craft knife as well, if you think you'll get a straighter line. Some people find that easier, but if you've got a good eye for cutting by hand, is just as good. Now you need to get through this, so I'm just going to cut a little shape like that, which allows me to put the scissors in and cut. There's a little bit there that I want to just tidy up, make it a little bit neater. Oh. So you've got your first piece cut. We're also going to cut a piece for the other side as well. The reason why I cover both sides is because when you glue something onto a piece of card like this, it can end up warping the card if you don't cover both sides. It also looks an awful lot nicer, obviously, to cover both sides, but there's a practical reason as well to cover both sides. So that's for the reverse side. Quite nice, I think, to use different ones that match as well. Like this has a lovely, these colours have a lovely kind of autumnal warm feeling about them, but the blues and the greens are just as nice. And then I'm going to cut the pieces for the back and for the stand. It's good to use the side of the page like this. It makes it a little bit easier for you. And then the last bit is to cover the stand. So you're going to need 2 of these as well. Sometimes if you're careful, I always say be very careful when you're cutting things out of paper. Don't plonk it right in the middle, because you'll lose a part of it. And it's good to make use of the the paper as much as possible. So the only parts that we don't cover are these little bits here, the little strips that I cut for lifting the back away so that you have somewhere to slot the photograph down. So we'll start with the main piece. You can use PVA glue, you could use Bostik as well, but I find these glue sticks really handy for this kind of work. They're really easy to apply and they're not smelly at all, so completely safe to use with children as well. You can see I'm using a fair bit of glue. You want to make sure you get right into the corners, that's quite important, and along the edges. And just lay turn it over. Exactly the same. Now you can see there's a little bit here sticking out, so I'm just going to use the craft knife to cut down very carefully, just to trim it off so that it doesn't show when you're looking through the window. It's very hard to cut anything completely, you know, to the millimetre, so there we go. The next part is to cover the back, which is going to come here. Okay, the reason for covering it is because it looks so nice when you've got some kind of colourful pattern shining through. Much nicer than looking at a piece of grey card. Actually, it's easier to put the glue onto the grey card rather than onto the paper. If you're applying it to the paper, because it's softer and thinner, it's easy to end up dragging it. Okay. Good. And I'm going to apply these little bits of card. So you can see I cut 2 that are going to go alongside on the two long sides. And then you need one that just slots down in between the two. Like that. You only put the grey card, these little strips, on three sides. You want one side left open, which is going to create the slit for you to drop your photograph down. So next thing is more glue on the strips, and then you have to place it carefully over. You could use a ruler to measure this, but using your eyes is probably pretty good. Place it lightly over and then move it so there's no grey card showing, and that it looks pretty neat on the back and lined up. So the very last part of this now is to cover the stand. You'll see that I cut the stand wider at the bottom and a little bit narrower at the top. And the last thing I'm going to do is to take the ruler and a pen or a pencil, something you can give a bit of pressure, and about 1.5 inches down, draw a line strongly with a pen. The reason we're going to do this is we're going to make a little hinge here, but it's very important that you don't make the hinge weak. So rather than scoring it with a knife, I just do it with a biro and bend it towards you on the line very slightly, okay? So you don't have to go too hard, but something like that, just a little bend. And you can straighten it out again, and then you can apply the cover. Okay, and then when you've got it covered, feel carefully for which way the bend goes and just put the bend back in slightly. Be very careful not to bend backwards and forwards. If you bend backwards and forwards, you will weaken the hinge and it won't help your picture frame to stand. So what we want to do is create the ability for the picture frame to kind of lean backwards against the stand. So try and use your eyes just to decide whereabouts it needs to be positioned. So I'm just putting two little light markers with a pencil so I can see. I won't do it in biro because I don't want to mark it too much. We can see now where that piece needs to go. And then you apply glue just to the part which is bent over, so just that little bit there. And go back to your two small marks and lay it in position and just hold it for a couple of seconds. And that is the final part of making your picture frame. Let's see, might need to bend that just very slightly more. There, it's a bit better. Put that up there, you can see it properly. And the blue one, as you can see, that's a completely different look, but just as lovely. There we go. Enjoy.